of incredible places. One of them that I had never been was Portland, Oregon. Oregon was the 45th state on my list. I figured this out sitting across the table from this gentleman from Forbes magazine, as well as a couple of cohorts of his in Portlandia, Oregon, Rob Nyer and Bernard McKinney. Maury Brown, guitar player for Shoot the Thrill. By the way, I forgot to wear the Shoot the Thrill shirt this time, Maury, on the webcam. Next time I will, I promise. Thanks so much for making Portland so memorable. You even got me some Homer Simpson references there before it was all over with.
Yeah, I'm glad that you came out, and I saw the shirt. If you're wearing the shirt that I think I saw, it was a nice 5-piece drum kit. So that's cool, man.
This is a nasty.
You can never go
shirt.
wrong there.
Now you saw the TV show. What was it called? I'm losing my mind now. Vinyl. Vinyl was the show on HBO. You didn't see that?
I missed it. I heard it was great though.
Dude, you got to get that, man. Get that on demand or whatever. The Nasty Bits were the band. That was Mick Jagger's kids' band. They were punk rock bands. So I figure, me being Nasty Nestor and all, why not have some Nasty Bits road gear, even though no one's in on the joke except those who watch Vinyl. I was not in on the Portland thing until I got there, and it didn't rain the whole time I was there. It rained most of the time I was there, but there were some inadvertent little bits of sunshine there. That's a hell of a town you got out there, Maury. Now I know why people run off to Portland and live.
Yeah, man. I love it here. It's, the rain can be a bit much. Hey, it's going to be, but the weird thing, Nestor, was you brought it with you. It was beautiful. You arrived, and then it's supposed to be 86 next week.
Well,
so the summer is when, if you ever, of course, what are the odds that you're coming back out here? But if you ever do try and come out during the summer months, it's remarkable. There's a good reason that a lot of people are moving here.
It's really weird because I always thought Portland, I'd get dragged there by a Springsteen concert. So it was U2, but I didn't realize it was 6 full hours on the highway from Portland to Vancouver.
Well, now you know why, man. Why I was working to try and bring Major League Baseball here at around 2000. That was a large part of it. I just got tired of driving to Seattle. To Vancouver, it's really a trek.
It is.
But, it's not, it's still a bit of a jaunt to get to Seattle. I think that a lot of people, of course, that aren't up in this neck of the woods think we're close neighbors, but we're really not. It's about a 3.5-hour drive. So, yeah, man, the Pacific Northwest has a lot to offer. It is nestled up here in a part of the country that a lot of people don't get to, but if the traffic here is any indication, man, it's getting very crowded, and it has been over the last 10 years or so.
Well, it's because you got the good life out there in Oregon. Maury, of course, can be followed out on Twitter and at All Things Forbes at Bizball Maury out on Twitter. And the business of baseball is his business. And, how is the business of baseball right now, 2 months into this thing? Certainly from a wins and losses perspective, those of us who believed Boston or Cleveland or the Cubs were just going to run away and hide, that hasn't happened. But from a pennant race perspective, we saw the Nationals last week when I was out there with you. It really is amazing. They're going to run away with the National League East. I can tell you right now, that there's one division that's already done. I like to see a little bit more drama than that in my baseball.
Well, there is that. And then there's, if you look at the AL West, which I pay close attention to because of the Mariners, of course. I apparently jinxed the Mariners because I said they were going to break their playoff utility record. And I think that the woes that they've had in terms of pitching injuries is going to prevent it. But the Astros are the other team that I'm watching really closely, and they look fantastic. Talk about absolutely derailing Derek Jeter Day at Yankee Stadium. That was the most incredible half inning, top of the inning that I've seen in a long time. And so, I think to your original question, baseball has probably never been in a better position. And it's been this way for a while. They just finished up the last of their major sponsorship agreements that they've redone. So I think they have 5 this year, and they continue to kind of cycle through them. Concerns are probably a little bit further out, and it ties to the ESPN situation. I do wonder how aggressively ESPN will vie for Major League Baseball content. I think it's interesting to see. Just today, they changed Baseball Tonight, ESPN's Baseball Tonight Facebook page to just ESPN. And that doesn't really, whether whether or not, I mean, if you're trying to read tea leaves, that doesn't look especially well.
Well, that whole
But
merger's coming, right? I mean, we are beginning to see Bill Ripken on ESPN as part of MLB's coverage, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and they're going to have intentional talk on there, and so and that gets back into more studio-driven, opinion-based stuff, and we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, and you're seeing that with Fox as well. I mean, Fox partners with MLB Network, and that helps them. I think that it really works well. I mean, they have Costas and Jim Catt do a lot of programming on MLB Network, which I love. I think that Bob Costas does baseball exceptionally well. But I mean, in terms of the business of it, it's really well. I think the only thing that's kind of outstanding right now that I'm watching closely is whether we're going to get league-wide expanded safety netting past the dugouts. 9 clubs have done it thus far. We have New York City councilmen that introduced legislation that would have netting go all the way up the baselines, which I think is a bit much. But once again, I don't know why the league is it keeps hanging on this thing. Manfred has said that he really wants to see it.
How much netting are we talking about here? Like,
that.
ideally, I remember when the hockey thing happened, Maury, and, the hockey thing, we had a death of a kid in Columbus. I know you've chronicled that. I think we've all been at a baseball game where a bat, a ball, blood, ushers running down, medics. I've seen all of that. To some degree, you feel like, well, it's a sporting event. It's unavoidable. It's, from an insurance standpoint, from a look, they have to do everything they can do to make it never happen, right?
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple things that have changed. Social media makes it to where anything that happens like that immediately gets shown, and so the optics of it have changed. The other thing is that baseball has really pushed the in-game entertainment factors on huge, massive, screens that you have, the jumbotrons that you have, as well as making it more family-friendly. So, I mean, 100 mile an hour, a ball that comes scorching in a liner at 100 miles an hour is hard enough for anybody to stop. But of course, with all the distractions we have, and look, I'd be remiss if we didn't say that there's too many people staring at their phones and stuff, because that's obviously part of it, but just all of it together. But what I'm really, when the league started to do this, and look, I talked to members of the Texas Rangers, and they were really worried about this. They had meetings leading up to the season before it started. They reached out to season ticket holders. They were really getting ready for this PR thing that they thought would be very negative, and they found out it was anything but. There were a couple of people that asked to be moved, and after that, it's pretty much stopped. Now, they have a system by which they can lower the netting for batting practice, and that allows the players to interact more frequently and more directly with the fans during batting practice. But during the game, they raised that. So, I mean, as that information becomes available, and look, I've talked to others, namely the Seattle Mariners, and they're interested in seeing how this is working across the league. I think that this begins to change. And I get back to this, Nestor. Look, I sit in the press box, and when balls come flying back, and we're paying attention to the game as close as anybody can, by that time the ball has lost considerable velocity. But I've seen laptops get broken. I've seen, the balls put dents in the walls, and do that sort of thing. That's behind the plate. And there's netting, of course, for the most expensive seats in the house, which are right behind home plate. So I find it kind of ironic that fans are willing to spend to sit directly behind home plate where there is netting, but this idea that we're going to extend netting down the baselines, potentially to the dugouts, is some horrible thing. And I just think that people will get used to it. It's like anything else. There'll be some clamor about it, and then they'll get past it. The worry for me is, or the worry that Rob Manfred should have, is this. You got 9 clubs that have done it. For those others that haven't, the first time somebody gets clocked and is sent to the hospital, you got a good legal case, because you can say, look, it's not like you guys didn't know about this. 9 of your teams have already done it. So there's some negligence going on here. Why didn't you guys jump on the bus? So I think it'll be interesting to watch. I get it from the purist perspective. I get all of those things. But just thinking largely about how the game has changed in terms of having family-friendly stuff and having those balls continue and bats flying into the stands, I just think it's time.
He is Maury Brown, Bisbal Maury, my tour guide for all things Portland, Oregon. I'm still getting over the coffee from up there and all those microbrews. By the way, I found that the best microbrew I found was in Seattle. I will send you there at the top of this hill. I don't remember the name of it, but I do know how you love the microbrew pubs, and I know you get there for baseball often. And, the business of baseball is about to change with a sale, right? I mean, it's been a little while since any of these teams have changed hands. Maury, I've been on the phone with Detroit all week, and obviously the death of Mike Ilitch there. Everyone here has asked me about Angelos and what would happen now that he's into his upper 80s. Who would own the team? Who would buy it? My answer would be who the hell could afford it? And we're seeing the Marlins thing and rumored to be the Bush and the Jeters getting involved and all. Some thoughts about where that sale is and how that's going to affect the next 10 or 15 years of baseball.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that, and I mentioned this right up front when this came around, and I asked, I said, look, you got a nice problem to have here, and this I'm speaking to executives at the commissioner's office. I said, the large sums of money that are being offered up is a good thing, but the bad thing is it's hard to cobble together the cash without putting yourself in a bunch of debt. And they believed, and they continue to believe, whether it's being said because they think that everybody will come through with it, that at the end of the day, there will be the wherewithal to make it happen. They'll either pull people in that can make it happen or otherwise. So I think it's interesting, of course, you have the Romney group there that's involved, and I think that, that's going to continue to be the thing. I think they really want Jeb Bush and Derek Jeter. You can just see the Jeter retirement. He just handles himself really well, and he will become, much like Magic Johnson is to the Dodgers, you will have Jeter be that. I don't think that he's going to be hands-on as much as people might think. But it does look good. I think that they very much want him involved. And certainly the Bush family has been involved. Certainly George W. owned the Rangers there for a while. So there's some of that lineage involved there. I think they'd like to see it happen. Whether they can make that money come together, that was the first question that I had the minute this hit and this news got out, is where's the money going to come from? And I continue to see whether that's going to be the case. If it doesn't come through, I think the Romney group is sitting there in backup. But I think that you got to give them a little bit more time. Nothing is super pressing to make this sort of thing happen right away. And they'll continue to try and see if they can cobble that money together.
Yeah, the other part of that is who's ever going to come to the games down there? What are they going to do to make it appealing to go watch baseball on an indoor blimp in Miami? I've been to that facility. I named it my worst out of the 30 experiences. Below Tampa, below Oakland, the traditional dogs of baseball. I just think it's an awful experience to go to a Miami Marlins game.
Well, they have one thing that I love there, which is, of course, the Bobblehead Museum. That's kind of a cool thing.
Well, they have beer and a pool in left field, too, and scantily clad chicks in the Clevelander there. So I like all that. I just don't need that at the baseball game. I can do that after the game.
Yeah. If there was one thing that I wish they would get rid of, it's the abomination out there in center field. I will never forget when when the drawings came out of what that home run thing was going to look like. And I think I termed it was like Busby Berkeley on acid. And he was.
It looks a little Willy Wonka. It looks like sort of a set out of Munich.
Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, there's a lot of it. I know where the colors were there. They were trying to do it, to the Art Deco. They were trying to pay homage to that. The fish tank behind, home plate, all that.
It's more like cheese deco than Art Deco for when you're there.
And it's very, how can I put this? It's very Jeffrey Loria. And so
well, especially when you drive in any direction there through the barrio and you pull up and they want $20 to park on a lawn and you look across the street and there's this spaceship that landed in the middle of Little Havana. It's absolutely bizarre. That's all and the fact that you could own the team there is great and all that, but then who's going to come, Who's going to come from West Palm?
I think they can make it work. And so my impression of the ballpark was that they had really run out and really ran the retro design into the ground. You really just couldn't go there too much anymore. And I think that they wanted to make a statement that you could move away from that. The initial drawings, I actually liked it. It's exactly what I said. It looked like a spaceship. But, they had to have a roof down there, I think, that because, you get the thunder showers at the very least. You really needed it. So how do you bridge that? And it's really a design issue at that point. And it is what it is. I think that whoever owns the team, though, can really maximize it. I think it's been under-maximized considerably. There's still no naming rights. They don't have that. A television deal is coming up for renewal. And I think that the biggest thing is that you buy goodwill from the community when you get rid of Jeffrey Loria. It's addition by subtraction. And, I can tell you that in my conversations with executives in the league, I think that they would really, they won't say anything disparaging about Jeffrey Loria, but I've also heard that I think the way that it was put is we just don't like him very much. And that was the kindest way of saying we really wish he wasn't around. And so,
and by the way, if there were no Angelos here, he would have been our owner. I want to point that out. Jeffrey Loria was the guy Peter Angelos was bidding against at the 11th hour. Loria wanted the Orioles. Imagine what he would have done. Well, I can't imagine. I mean, we've had it pretty bad here the last 25 years. But, Loria might have been worse. I don't know, though, man. That's a two-beer conversation, Maury, as to who would have been worse here.
And it would have been. But, I mean, that was like the lesser of two evils, right? I mean, at the time, I distinctly remember that at the time, Angelos was seen as very much preferred over Loria at the time. And, I mean, we can
somebody preferred Trump over Clinton 4 months ago, too, but that's a whole other story, right?
That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, it is it's unfortunate what has happened in Baltimore. I mean, Angelos was gifted with a beautiful ballpark to do something with, and really rode that and Cal's situation there for a while. And the team has been up and down. I mean, they've looked better at times. I just look at like the Yankees right now. I think are the biggest surprise. They just did so well with their prospects. I think that they're the largest surprise, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in free agency next year. I've thought that they're going to go. They won't go wild, but they'll absolutely be players in free agency next year, next offseason, and so it'll be interesting to watch. They very easily, to me, seem like they're going to make the playoffs, and it's of course way early for that kind of discussion, but they're certainly in a better position than some, and they have a lot of great talent. I think that they could go. Not only just maybe into a potential wild card game, I think that they could outright win the AL East at this point, and I think that it makes for an interesting conversation.
There's nowhere I was on my trip where I didn't see Cubs gear, by the way, Maury. I mean, I think it's sort of the Chicago badge of honor. Not as easy this year as they made it look last year, is it?
No, and I mean, and that, it's always that way. But remember, I mean, the Cubs came out of the gate, they kind of stumbled a bunch. And so, it's baseball, right? I mean, I always say this, and I think that it's held up well, and I think that most people that watch the game would agree. You really don't start to get serious about where things are at until after the All-Star break. That's where teams and that's where pennant races are won and lost based upon the durability of your pitching staff and how things are going, down the home stretch. So we're a ways off from there. I know we just started voting for the All-Star game, and speaking of Florida, it'll be there. So, it'll be, I think, interesting to watch. It's always interesting to try and make predictions this early out. I mean, you can just look at how some teams seem to be in much better positions than they were or worse the year prior. And look at Toronto. Toronto's come out of nowhere also. Of course, they were playing the Mariners. But, they looked horrendous early on, and they've seemed to turn on the gas. The Texas Rangers have done the same thing right now, although I don't think that they'll ever catch Houston at this point. And then, that's kind of how baseball operates. So, kind of ebbs and flows.
I was going to say, you mentioned All-Star games. We don't have All-Star games in Baltimore. We have an owner who sues his partners instead. So that's why we don't get All-Star games here. It's sad. Sad but true.
Yeah, and, they said that wasn't the case. But, and I know that that's exactly why that they haven't received it. When you skipped over them a couple years back, that was a pure indication that how that Masson deal is going is just really wreaking havoc.
Well, Washington's going to get their All-Star game before we get ours, and, of course, they'll use the mall and the fireworks and all that stuff. Hey, man, I really appreciate all the hospitality. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to see Shoot the Thrill or meet your wife and your family out there, but we did have some pretty good beer and a nice steak and some good conversation. Got to watch a little sports on the telly, and I got to learn about the history of The Simpsons in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, there you go, man. Remember, that's why we have Ned Flanders, because we were off of Flanders Street, right?
I drank beer there, but I did not eat any donuts. I cannot be held responsible for that. Maury, great to have you on, man, as always. Thanks for the hospitality.
All right, Nestor, I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
One of the all-time greats. He is Bizball Maury out on Twitter as well as at Forbes. And the business of sports is his business out on Twitter as well. He is the lead guitarist, or the rhythm guitarist, as he'll point out, for Shoot the Thrill NW, that's short to Shoot the Thrill Northwest out there in Portland, Oregon, where he, along with Bernard Bikini and Rob Nair, hosted a Vietnamese happy hour over ice-cold brews and craft brews and refreshments. It was lovely when it wasn't raining in Portland, and then on to Seattle and on to Vancouver as well. Orioles in Detroit, they're hosting the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. We will continue to talk about the lost seasons of the Capitals and the Wizards, as well as get you ready for Preakness 143 this week out at Old Hilltop. You can reach me, Nasty, at WNST.net. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet is served, including streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We're out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day for anything you might miss. Just go out to the website. You can download, listen when you want, where you want, how you want, to what you want, or listen live by downloading the TuneIn radio app. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. And last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Last chance on the London trip. We got Green Bay and Nashville on sale for the fall as well. You can always drop me an email or check out the Road Trips tab on the website. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.